Good, almost beginning of spring, everybody. And if you're 45 or older, talk to your doctor and schedule a colonoscopy. That's that big ass 13-foot wide one there. What's left of it. This was my favorite, the Gubble Bum. You are looking at my decades old hugelkultur, basically, is what they call it these days. I call it a natural freaking transition to shit, but my pots are in the ground, the ones that are in pots. I'm transitioning slowly into all in the ground. I've got two more to go. This one here and that one over there. That pot there grows somewhere around here. Last year we were butt chugging that pot in the cattail marsh. Okay? Or over top of the cattail marsh. Which brings up this area here where you see that little trail in between the brown and the berm. That is actually a cattail swamp, basically, and that I've built up with logs to where I can walk on it. And you can see it's remnants of logs and stuff. This is kind of the perimeter here of my well. This is a well right there. Okay, that well goes 9 feet down. Typically, it has caved in a little bit. 8 years ago, I dug it out because we had no water. Yeah, I had to go 9 feet down to find mud to water my plants, and then by the end of the season, there was no water to keep hardly anything alive, and all I had was one plant make it. But back to what I was talking about. So this is a man-made platform that I'm walking on here. Okay, and you can see the logs that I piled up. This is a third or fourth generations of logs that I piled up here. Okay, you can see. Let's see. This is the best example. Let me back up without stepping in the holes here. All right. Okay. So that's for reference. That's the well now. I just came up this trail. That is logs underneath there. You can see one right here. This one directs me like in the dark, or if I'm not paying attention while I'm doing stuff. If I hit that, I know if I go over this way too far, I'm going to be starting to step down into here, which you can see the way the snow is kind of formed here. That steps down into that hole. So when I dug that well, I had peat moss 3 feet over the top of my head, and I was shoveling up this step here. So I was standing down there, I'd take the shovel from this area and flip it up to here, and then I filled in where the logs up to this point, to where I was planning on walking. Now there's a berm started here, a little pile-ish, kind of. And then I've used some of that was here this year to fill that pot because we had so much water this year. There's no way nothing was going to survive here. It's not high enough. So this here is the cream cheese, the massive monster from last year. And I'll give you a little shot at what it looks like here. There's also a hole right here. The reason why I didn't let that one grow there is because without a pot there is because I tried planting one here at one time when the water level was real low. And then, of course, we get like 12 inches of freaking rain. And in this bog, it doesn't fluctuate fast. So once we got all that water, it didn't go down. So I had to plant ground here. So then I took that ball, that root ball, and put it up here. Hope you guys can hear me. I'll talk a little louder, but this is that plant. All grown on this bed. And you guys can watch the whole transition because I have videos from last year when these plants were only this big down here. You know, I'm not talking this big. This big. And in one season, just like 3 months, 4 months probably, of good growing weather, we got this. The hugelkultur is basically wood, which is old tree material, typically aged for a couple of years. But here's the root ball, or part of it, you know. Grass clippings. Grass clippings are a big deal in my stuff, okay? I'm top dressing into this material here, the top dressing material, which is grass clippings. I'm top dressing in there and working that stuff in. And as you can see, the roots are growing right into it. So they're not really, as they're decomposing, they're not drawing anything away, or any of the nutrients away from the plant. I'm backing up everything with other stuff. Fermented plant juices and activated aerated compost teas. Those come in handy if if you need to fill your spray. Say if you do have a lot of water that came on here, you know, over the course of a few days of rain, say, and you're on a feeding schedule with dry amendments and amendments, stuff like that, you're not typically you are on a schedule, but not on a I'm going to need some nutrients right now schedule, okay? If you do have to need nutrients right now because now your roots are soaked out and they're not taking up any nutrients, you can sustain your plants very well by foliar spraying like a fermented plant juice on top of it, or a compost tea, something that has some nutrients. And there's other, you can foliar spray Miracle-Gro. Be careful of your freaking application, and be careful on where you source your plant material for your fermented plant juices, and all, you know, your other sources for your compost tea. Basically, your fermented plant juices, you don't want any nightshades in there, or anything is, well, cannabis does like more acidic, I guess, from what I understand. But the combination of the grass clippings, which is the nitrogen source, and the wood chips and the wood, which is the carbon source. It's also water retention. Not that we need it in a freaking cattail marsh, but I did find out that I had freaking plants freaking starve. That was at the very beginning of my freaking mound system here. They didn't have, and those were in pots also. I might add that. At that time, I was still had them in pots. So it's no surprise, those can dry out pretty easy. They were in the ground, which was my kind of my savior to a point for a couple years. But yeah, anyways, we're going to go for it again. We're going to go for the 20-foot mark, 20 foot wide, and keep them as low as possible. Last year we were 4.5 feet tall, and this year we're going to try and keep them lower. So without chopping everything off, right? I'm going to try and do it without chopping anything off. But I am going to top one of them just to see how the training method works. And I'm going to lay them out to the south. the way it sounds is typically they lay them out to the north, but I'm finding all my new growth is just heavily on the south. I may have to anchor the sucker down because it's all going to be. I'm gonna try and train it a lot that way, but it's going to be a lot of weight on this side. So, and the predominant winds. I mean, it's all. Thankfully, I've experienced the freaking everything around here. I think so far. Now I had the bugs last year, so we're gonna go for 20 foot wide this year. So I'll keep you posted. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you. One of these days, I'm going to start shouting out people. I'm going to have to write them down. I just don't want to shout out a couple of you because how many? I mean, there's thousands of freaking homies out there. And, you know, predominantly I'm doing this for the exposure of my trainers, which they're not made for public yet. I don't know, and I don't have the resources to have them made or whatever, so I'm just going to keep showing off the results. Maybe somebody will say, hey, I'm a manufacturer or something like that, and I can help you, and we can team up. Just that I don't know that I see if I'm going to do the what do you call it, 3D printer route. I'll just do the 3D printing myself. I have a homie that friggin' knows everything about computers and 3D printing. He can smash out one pretty easy. I just haven't had time to. Well, we're gonna try and hook up and friggin' figure some shit out. But yeah, any super huge manufacturers, not super huge, whatever. Somebody that can get the job done to where we can get them around the world to all the homies and gromies. Let's do it. Thanks everybody for watching. Peace.